Hi everybody, this is Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. So, can you practice or learn the violin without a violin? So, the first time I saw this question, and believe it or not, it actually pops up a fair amount in like Google searches and stuff. The first time I saw this question, I thought, well, that's a pretty silly question. In fact, I knew a guy in college, he thought that he could learn his instrument by just thinking about it. Well, long story short, he failed his juries and he got kicked out of school. However, the more I thought about this question, it started to intrigue me a little bit. And it brought up some interesting questions like, well, what is the difference between a brain having experience and imagining it's having experience? And assuming that there is a difference, how does the brain even know that there's a difference? And if the brain decides there's a difference, well, what does the difference really mean in terms of practicing? Well, I did a bunch of research on this, and to my surprise, actually, there's actually a lot of studies that have been done about this particular topic. And I also found out that I had been employing that tactic myself and teaching it to my students for many years, and I didn't even realize it. Now, this video could get really long and really into the weeds because there's been a lot of scientific research about how the brain works and all this crazy stuff. So I'm just gonna break it down into like really simple categories and simplify it as much as I can. So first of all, the answer to the question, can you learn the violin without having a violin? The answer is no, if you've never played the violin. Because when you practice the violin, you're strengthening neural connections in your mind, okay? But if you've never played the violin, those connections don't exist, therefore there's nothing to strengthen. However, if you do have those connections in your mind, you can strengthen those connections in your mind by simply using what they call mental practice. So what is mental practice? Well, it's basically mentally imagining you're practicing your violin. So how do you mentally practice and how do you get the most out of mental practice? And perhaps you've already used mental practice and you didn't even know it. So let's just talk about that a little bit. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the little button. Okay, thanks a lot, appreciate it. So number one, when you're mentally practicing, you will want the image of your practicing to be as vivid as possible. Because the more vivid it is, the stronger the signal is, and the more real it becomes to your brain. The more real it is, the more you're strengthening those connections. And because you're actually activating the same portions in your brain when you think about it than when you actually do it, the portions of their brain in the motor cortex. So you want to strengthen those connections in that portion of the brain to get the maximum effect. Okay, so number two is that you have to focus as much as possible and try to avoid distractions. We all know the distractions, the evil distractions, because if you practiced before, you know that you can be playing your instrument and then all of a sudden you're thinking about, what's the cat doing? Or, that was a delicious sandwich I had for lunch. Or a myriad of other things. What am I going to do at work tomorrow? Or whatever it is, right? So it's really easy to daydream while you're practicing your instrument and lose focus. Well, when you're mentally practicing, you can't do that because your arms can't move while you're being distracted thinking about something else. You are not moving your arms, so you just have to think about what you're doing. So focus becomes very, very important. Okay, so what are the benefits of mentally practicing, okay? Well, there's kind of four main benefits, okay? So the first one is that it really helps your ability to focus, right? Because focusing while you're practicing is really, everybody that you know who's a great player, they're really good at focus, right? They're really good at focusing on little things and working on those little things, blah, blah, blah. So if you're mentally practicing, you're teaching yourself to kind of maintain that focus, and that's a great important thing to have as your skill set. So number two would be time efficiency. So a lot of times you just don't have time to practice, right? Maybe you're on your way to a lesson or on your way to a recital or on your way to audition or whatever. So you can think about that while you're in the car, the train, the plane, whatever. You can think about it when you can't play, and that's going to be beneficial to you. So number three would be avoiding physical strain, okay? So obviously if you're using your brain, you're not using your fingers and everything else, right? And a lot of the people that I knew in the professional world or in college or whatever, who would develop injuries, a lot of times they were the people who practiced the most, but they were also the people a lot of times who didn't really practice right. They would practice a lot, but they didn't really focus and they weren't really there. They would daydream, so they end up just wearing their body out. So if you're using your mind and you're focusing a lot, you're not wearing out your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, and everything else. Okay, so number 4 is probably the biggest one and probably the one that's easily the most applicable to the most people. And it's also the one that I personally employed a lot with my mental practice, and that is performances. So a lot of times, we'll have a recital or an audition or a competition or whatever it is. And if you mentally prepare during or before, you will achieve much greater results. So what does that mean? Okay, so before you go on stage, before you go into the room, wherever you're going, you visualize that space. You visualize the judges. Where are the judges? Where are you sitting? Where are you standing? Where is your music? Where is the accompanist if there is one? The other things that you can imagine are imagine your success, imagine your victory. Go out there and with your positive energy. Imagine your positive energy. Imagine the energy that you are sending out to your audience. Okay, so all of that's already happened in your mind. So when you go out there and perform, you're just doing what you've already done. You've already been successful. You already had an amazing performance that was super successful. You were already in your audition, you hit all your notes. And this is especially important with sight reading. So I have a sight reading method, and I have a video about it. My method works very well, but the method that I use, that I taught a lot of my students for sight reading, employed a lot of mental practicing. Meaning, a lot of times with sight reading, they will give you music that you can look at for like 30 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever before you play it. Well, it never occurred to me before, but that's actually mental practicing. So the reason why they let you look at the music is you're actually mentally practicing the music before you play it. So learning how to mentally practice that sight reading before you actually have to play it, before your time's up, that's going to greatly increase the chances of success and accuracy with your sight reading. So guys, I hope this video wasn't too long. I hope it was informative. And I hope we all learned something. Like I said, this is a pretty in-depth subject. There's actually a lot of really cool studies that have been done about, what's real and what isn't in the human mind, and how the human mind just figures that out, and what differences it make, and how strong are the signals, and how do they work, and what is the brain made out of, and what parts are communicating. And so it gets very, very involved. And if you're really into that, there's a lot of studies. You can look them up, and they're really fascinating, I think. So I hope you guys found something helpful with the video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please put them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, you can always call Kennedy Violins if you have any questions about anything that you're doing with music, because we're all players and teachers. So with that, I hope you guys have a great day.